Hi, everyone. Welcome to Managing Online Expectations and Etiquette. This session will be recorded. So if you have questions, please feel free to talk with Sarah and Elena. They are going to take it away. All right. There you go.
Guys, welcome to this. Thank you so much for coming. Just to sort of set the mood and get a guide for where you are. I know there's only 2 of you, but if you're on Zoom, down at the bottom where you have the line to chat and do stuff like that, if you hit reactions, there are a bunch of different things you can choose. So I'm just going to ask a couple of different questions and just react if your answer for that would be yes. So my first question is, have you logged into all of your classes and read the syllabus for every class? Perfect, that's great. Yeah. Have you already emailed one of your instructors? If you want to like switch and do a different reaction, you can. How about, have you had a virtual class that met all at the same time? All right, it's a mix. What about a virtual one-on-one meeting with somebody? All right, I'm getting some nods. Where are my reactions? I want to see like the surprise face. I want to see hearts.
Mine only has 2 options.
You only have 2? Oh.
Yeah, I only have the clap and the thumbs up.
Well, you can rotate between the clap and the thumbs up. I have a celebration. I have a heart. Oh, it won't let me change it. I have laughing. I'm shocked. That's for like, I'm supposed to be doing that. What about, has anyone had to do a discussion board in their Blackboard class?
Yes.
All right. So it sounds like you've at least seen some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, and hopefully you're going to learn that you've been doing everything right and that everything's on the right track, but I guess we'll see.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So, hey guys, I'm Elena Lucetti. I am the transfer counselor for the RX program. So I'm going to kick us off here and just remind you that today we're talking about your online expectations and etiquette for taking online courses and communication with your instructors and other offices. So for expectations, there's really 2 pieces of this, right? What can you expect from others, your professors and other offices on campus? And then what are the expectations put on you as an online student? Okay, separating the 2 of those things is really helpful, so you know and have these clear understandings of timelines, you know, when you'll get answers from your instructors, deadlines and things that you might have to do, and just where to access information while we're operating remotely. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what you can expect from your professors, right? So as an online student, if you're not taking virtual, in-person, live classes, your instructors are going to be posting all of your course content on your Blackboard page. Okay, so you'll be getting assignments, readings, your test exams, all of these things laid out for you in your syllabus, right? So the expectation is that you're logging into your Blackboard page, you're accessing your syllabus. That's the expectation on you, and the expectation you guys can have for your instructor, that they're gonna lay all this out for you, okay? So what happens if you have questions, you don't understand something, right? Of course, all of your instructors are here for you and want to make sure that you understand everything. They are not mind readers, right? So they can't really differentiate between, I didn't submit this assignment because I couldn't find it, or because maybe there was some poor time management and you just didn't get a chance to do it, right? So they want to hear from you. Nobody at this college, I can promise you, wants you at home struggling. But it is up to you, and the expectation put on you is that if you're struggling, if you have any questions whatsoever, that you're going to reach out, okay? What you can expect is that your instructors will have contact information laid out for you in their Blackboard page. They might have structured office hours that you can attend, or they might be by appointment only. But regardless, they are accessible and there to answer any questions for you once they hear from you, right? So what happens once you send that initial contact, right? Dear Professor so-and-so, I can't find this assignment. Can you please help me? Now, sometimes your instructors might lay this out clearly for you in your syllabus. These are the hours that you can contact me and expect a response, right? While we're operating remotely, sometimes, you know, people work different hours than they might normally. So I just encourage you to reach out and ask your instructors when you can contact them and when would be best. In general, you should expect 24 hours for a response. Sometimes you might find instructors answer late at night or early in the morning, right? But you can't really have that expectation for all of your instructors. So if you have a question, make sure you're planning enough time for at least a 24-hour response. So if it's the night of an assignment and it's due at 6 o'clock and you email at 5 and they aren't accessible, they might not be able to get back to you right away. So make sure you're giving yourself enough time by being proactive and looking at your syllabus and all of that.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there and say sort of absolutely. But that's not to say don't send the email if it is right on top of when an assignment is due. If you're confused, if something came up, I've had a student one time tell me the day before something was due, I was really planning on working on this all weekend and I wound up sick and I wasn't able to work on it. And I didn't get that email until Monday morning and that assignment was due, but I was still able to say, you know what, you did reach out to me over the weekend, so I can work something out with you. That won't be every professor, but don't email at the earliest that you know you need to send that email. And if it is now, you know, 2 hours before the assignment is due, that's still better than waiting until after it was due to say, here are all the reasons I didn't get it done. So I just want to say, like, nothing's black and white.
And that's a great point, Sarah, and kind of transitions us to this last point here, that all professors have different styles. So as the student, you really can't put your expectations onto the instructor. You have some underlying expectations that you can. They'll have a syllabus for you so you understand the requirements for the course. They will have provided you with their contact information so you know how to get in touch with them, but their styles of responding might be a little bit different, okay? So make sure to kind of put yourself in check with that and know that all your instructors are going to operate a little bit differently, so you can't really take the setup from one course and put the expectation on that onto the next course because they are going to be all different. Now, do you guys have any questions or feedback that you want to give specifically about kind of expectations from your different instructors? Yeah, absolutely. You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat box.
Oh, wait. Does the audio work on
Yep.
here?
Yep.
Okay. Well, why am I blanking? I'm trying. I usually I've already sent not only number of emails, but both my professors. I'm taking the English, history and sociology class, English class semester. And not only have I've emailed both of them, and I've also they both have asked the instructor sections on the discussion boards, and I've posted a question about basically on certain like self-assessment quizzes, you have to type out the words instead of select them on a multiple choice, and I didn't realize until I asked and got the answer that it has a lot to do with hyphens and making sure everything is spelled correctly. And if you go into your previous tests, and you click on the grade, and you click on, and it shows the, like, which one's exact match, like which answers, like how can you type this, like the phrase macro level orientation. You only use one hyphen. I used two when it reflected a lower grade. And I found it very helpful to ask questions to the instructor.
Anthony, thank you so much for sharing. And that's a wonderful point, because chances are, if you're struggling with something or have a question about something, there's probably somebody else in the class as well. So you might be the first person to ask the question. You might be the third or fourth, right? And that really gets it to the attention of the instructor.
He actually implied that I wasn't the only one having that problem, and that it had to do with, I thought it was case sensitivity. He said that it was something a little bit more complex than just case sensitivity, meaning like oh, should the phrase be capitalized, lowercase, something like that. It's about how the word is spelt, and how if the hyphen, if you put a hyphen between, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure if he was able to take that information and pass it along to other students, it was helpful as well. And I'm going to go just on a little tangent here. I will be, kind of mindful of time and keep it on topic. But, the more you interact with your instructors, the more they get to know you. And the more they understand your learning styles, you get to understand how they operate. And these expectations just get more and more defined, and you get more and more comfortable with each other, and they're better able to help you, right? So even if it's just the beginning of the semester and you're reaching out saying, hi, this is my first time taking this course with you. This is what I plan to do. Can you confirm that that's correct? Just getting that dialogue going, making that connection can really go a long way, especially if you ever have to take that instructor, a different course with that instructor. Any other feedback, questions, comments, or I can kind of move it along. Awesome.
Does anybody else want to have a chance? Or?
Nope, sorry. All right, so now that we talked a little bit about what it might look like as an online student, expectations on you as the student, which is that you will be actively engaged in the courses, you will be checking your syllabus, and you will be reaching out to your instructors if you are struggling or you need any help. And then once again, your instructors are there to help once they have that contact, and they're structuring the course and the content and all of that you need to be successful. Now, there are still operations throughout the college that are running as normal as possible right now, right? So all of the offices on campus are still running. It looks a little different. We do have some folks on campus. You can probably tell here, I'm here in the TRIO office. We aren't open to meet with students in person, but we are here to take care of any daily tasks that need to happen in the office. So whether you're looking to connect from somebody from TRIO, financial aid, student support services, all of our offices are still up and running, and you can always, reach out for that support you need. Same as kind of the expectations with your instructors, each office is operating differently. So just even when we're in person, if you ever need any assistance connecting with an office, you can always come see us in TRIO, and we'll help you get connected. And make sure that once again, you might not get that immediate response. So if you're looking, you have an important due date coming up, paperwork you need to turn in, and you need to talk to somebody first, give it a little bit of time. That 24 hours is a great rule of thumb. There certainly are examples when you can get in touch with somebody the same day, but you don't want to rely on that, especially if you have important deadlines and things like that. Same as with your instructors, all the offices are operating a little bit differently. So always feel free to reach out. You will most likely get some feedback on the best way to contact them, or what the expectations on when you'll hear back. But yes, we are all up and operating and here to support you. Any questions about contacting any other offices?
I have a question on
Yep.
student services. Is that like a tutoring, like another tutor, or is that just like simple questions like, I don't know, you might ask?
So student support services is kind of this umbrella. So TRIO falls under student support services. We have our parent support system, disability support services, student life. So it doesn't cover tutoring. That's through the library. But once again, connect with one of us and we can certainly help you get connected with a tutor.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, last thing before I tag Sarah in here is just with your communication, especially when being remote and most of our communication is through email these days, you wanna make sure that your message comes across clearly and that especially if you're looking for that timely response, that you're providing as much information that you can to whoever you're sending your correspondence to so they can best assist you in the most quickly way that they can, right? So a few rules of thumb here. You always want to clearly identify yourself. So first name, last name, if you can add your student ID number, that certainly helps the process along as well. You want to make sure that you're professional and polite, right? You're not sending a paragraph long email or you're not just sending a one-liner, right? Your communication is addressing who you are sending the email to and you're providing a brief but clear message to them, right? And provide any contact information. If you want them to follow up with you, make sure you're including that contact information as well.
That's
right.
This one that I just have to jump into. So I used to work in the advising center and we had this massive call volume from all over the college. And we didn't have that single list like we have in TRIO of just a couple hundred students to sort through and kind of try to figure out what name was that. And there would, at least once a week, there was a voicemail that every single person in the office would have to listen to 3 or 4 times to try to figure out what name are they saying at the top of this voicemail. Because we couldn't hear the name, they didn't include an ID number, there was just nothing, and all we had was maybe the phone number to call back. But so often, you guys all know, when you're calling offices and need some help, I might be able to just look you up really quickly and see, oh, you actually need to just talk to financial aid really quickly, you don't need advising. So I'm not gonna waste your time with a call back, I'm gonna have financial aid call you, or whatever it might be. But if we can't hear your name, we can't start solving the problem. So if there's one thing I can recommend, speak, if you're leaving a voicemail, clearly, slowly. If you have a student ID number memorized, include that. Nothing makes you easier to identify. And include how you want to be followed up with. That's the other, is how often am I getting a phone number to call you back on? And you're Gen Z, so you don't answer the phone and your voicemail isn't set up and there's nothing I can do. I'm seeing a little bit of recognition there. So just think about that. If you're leaving a phone number to call back, please then be answering the phone when you're seeing, maybe a number you don't recognize. That's probably another piece of it.
Sorry if I may appear like I'm trying to stay awake right now. I just got home last night from vacationing in New York and we didn't get home till late and I haven't gotten a lot of sleep.
Thanks for joining us anyway.
If my eyes sometimes droop downwards, I'm trying to stay
awake.
Try my best to stay alert and awake.
Perfect. So, okay, now we're going to move on to etiquette. So this is a little bit softer, right, guys? It's, a little bit less clear cut in terms of, exactly what's going to be expected all the time. And etiquette, in real life as just being polite, right? Holding the door for somebody coming into a store behind you. God, chewing with your mouth closed, right? Like any of that kind of stuff. But online etiquette is a little bit different. And I think a lot of times you're behind a screen, so it feels a little bit more impersonal and it's a little bit easier to do things that you wouldn't do in real life. So I've broken this section down into sort of 3 separate categories. We'll talk about email, we'll talk about etiquette on Blackboard, and last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about Zoom etiquette.
So before we continue on, Sarah, just you made a great point, you know, about being behind the screen and how things are a little bit different, but you're really using the same etiquette that you've always known. We used the example, so I hope I'm not taking anything that you were going to share later on, but you wouldn't run into the TRIO complex and say, hey, I'm here, I need help, right? You'd kind of walk in, hi, my name's Elena, I'm looking to meet with an advisor, I need to adjust my schedule, right? So kind of taking that into consideration when you're communicating online as well.
Absolutely. So email etiquette. So the first thing I want to say isn't even really etiquette. I think just a really common mistake that people make. Your student email address is going to be your first initial, your last name, maybe a number at mwcc.edu. All of your faculty members will have similar email addresses, their first initial, their last name, maybe a number, but then instead of at mwcc.edu, we're at mwcc.mass.edu. So sometimes you'll send an email and you won't include that .mass, and we're not getting it. So while you're getting angry that your email is being ignored, we never got it. Sometimes you'll get the like the message didn't send, that undeliverable message. Not always. I can tell you that due to a weird system change at some point, I actually have one of those student email addresses, and I can't disable it. And maybe once a month I remember to check it, and I'll see some stuff in there from students. So that's just, if you are emailing someone who works at the college, make sure that you're using that .mass. It's just an aside. A lot of this, I'm just going to kind of get into the basics of how to write an email and things that I see that go wrong. So you put that email address in, and next is your subject line. I think two common things that I see as mistakes are the subject line is blank. So I don't have any sort of basic information before I'm jumping into the email. So you always want to include a subject. That's less of a problem and a little bit less common than something I've seen a lot in the last year, are people almost writing their whole email in the subject line. And I think, Elena, you've seen this too.
Yep.
That I'm getting a 2-sentence long subject, and then the email says like it's in the subject. And it's, you just want something, problem with my registration, or trouble contacting a professor, need help with my financial aid. That's a subject, not all of the details of the problem with your schedule. And then once we're into the email, I can't stress this enough. If you want a quick response, a polite response back from somebody, this is just like writing a letter. So did you guys ever, like when you were in school, you get taught either how to write an email or how to write a letter? Okay, so Anthony, you have, but some of you have. I remember the lesson in 3rd grade that we had to learn how to like write the other person's address at the top and write dear so-and-so and all of the spacing. This is the same thing. You're going to write, you know, you don't have to be super formal. You don't necessarily have to write dear Professor so-and-so. You can say,
hello, good morning. Anything that's a greeting, right? It's
right.
very abrasive when you get an email that's just yelling their point at you.
And so start with the greeting. Another thing to know, I think a lot of people get nervous when they're emailing their instructors because they don't know. Do I put Professor so-and-so? Is it doctor? Is it, if it's a woman and it's not a doctor, is it Miss? Is it Mrs.? So I understand that that can be a concern.
And usually when I get nervous, it has, you know, I always get told there are no stupid questions. And but I just keep, sometimes I replay nightmare scenarios in my head. What if I'm the first stupid question?
You won't be, first of all. And you're always better off asking than wondering. But in terms of that, I would say always, no one's ever really going to get mad at you for using the wrong thing, no matter what direction it's in. You're usually better off going with Professor last name and then let them correct you and say, I get that sometimes, and I say, please just call me Sarah. Others, that's what they want to be referred to as, you know, so I would say lean conservative, unless you know otherwise.
Yep.
And then in that email, be polite. And we understand that sometimes if it's something with your class and you've been struggling with it and you're frustrated and this due date is coming up, it's hard to not put that into the email. But there's a way to even convey that you're frustrated politely. You could even say, like, I'm just becoming frustrated with this assignment. I've tried this, this, and this. It's not working. What do you recommend I do? You don't start with, there's something wrong with this assignment. Why did you put it up like this? You know, when I get emails, I don't want an email that's just like, I need to be dropped from my classes immediately. Just, hi, Sarah, having trouble with my history class. Do you think that you can drop it for me? Do we need a meeting to talk about it? That's all. It takes the same amount of time to write the polite email as it does to type the one that just doesn't kind of consider that, just like Elena said, you would not walk into my office and just demand, like, drop my class right now. You would say, like, you'd sit down, you'd say hi to me, you know, and it's the same thing with that email. The other thing with spelling and grammar, especially when emailing a professor, it's not like writing a paper, but don't make them question who's writing your papers. If all of your spelling is wrong and you have, Elena, how often do you get an email with no punctuation? It's one line.
And not even just the punctuation, but it really is a representation of your efforts, right? So especially if you're writing an email to ask something, especially if you're asking for something to be done timely, don't make the person that you're sending the email to feel like it just took you 5 seconds to write that email and you're asking them to do you a favor, right? So have it be reflected that you're taking this seriously, because you want them to take it seriously, right? And also don't make them guess. So go back in, do like a quick spell check. Like Sarah said, you're not writing a thesis paper here, but if we have to question, wait, what word did they mean by that? I think it's a spelling error. I don't know. I could interpret it a different way, right? Just take a once over, check your spelling and grammar, and make sure that it's clear enough to read and reflects the effort that you want in the response back.
Absolutely. Always include a signature. I think one of the things I see a lot is someone will start an email with identifying who they are, which I'd rather you double identify than not at all. But just make sure, you're signing off with your name, maybe a preferred name if that's what you use. And then a lot of times it's really polite to include a phone number that we could call you back at if we had more questions and it seemed easier to chat about it than it did to continue on email. Or even, it never hurts to include that email address at the bottom too. I can just hit reply and it's right there, but it never hurts to just sort of reiterate, this is where you can reach me. And then back to that wait time, just for that one more time. We are all working. We are mostly working the normal 8 to 4, with some exceptions to that. So you always want to give 24 hours before resending that email or sending maybe a follow-up of, hey, did you get this? Just checking in. I know I personally will tell students sometimes, never feel bad about forwarding an email to me again that you think I might have missed. But you got to give me 24 hours to get back to you. And that's 24 working hours. So if you send something to me on Friday at 5 o'clock, you then can't send me something else on Saturday at 5 o'clock asking why I haven't gotten back to you, because it was Saturday. That's why. Your professors might be a little bit different. They always work kind of funky hours compared to, I think, a lot of the offices. But always, if you send something at 5 o'clock on Friday, the earliest you want to be following up is Monday afternoon. I'll say one exception is if something is really time sensitive. Maybe it's the last day to withdraw from classes and you've sent me an email asking to withdraw and I haven't gotten back to you, sending it one more time, again, politely, not with, my biggest pet peeve, guys, is the forward of the email you sent a couple hours ago within just a line of question marks, wondering why I haven't gotten to it. Just send again, like, hey, this is time sensitive. I just want to make sure that you saw this today. That's understandable when it's something that we have hours to get it done. But in general, 24 hours. But then don't hesitate. It's okay to say, I'm afraid you missed me. Just give it some space.
And kind of snowballing off of that, Sarah, you know, and kind of what we've talked about before, each office is different. Each person is different. A lot of you are, have or are developing, relationships with us as your advisors. So sometimes, or this might even be with your instructors as well. Like Sarah said, always start off a little bit maybe more professional, but you can certainly roll with however that person is responding to you. So if they respond with one line or one question, you can kind of get the feel of how the communication is going to roll. But when it's your first time emailing that person or the first interaction with that specific request, always make sure to lay it out and let the person responding kind of guide how the conversation is going to continue.
Any questions about that email stuff? Yeah, Manny, what's up?
So if let's say you email a professor or anyone in general and they email you back, but then it's a conversation where you keep going back and forth. Do you still have to be that formal the first time when you sent the email, or can you if I send an email, right? They respond to, an answer to maybe a question I might have. And then I respond back maybe thank you and maybe could I do this and that. And then it just starts to become like text messaging, I guess you could say, over email. Do I have to still be that formal?
Right. That's exact. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right, so I think that's exactly what Elena was just saying, was that let the, if that conversation, and it does, I have conversations that start just like that. The student emails me really professionally. I send that really professional response back, maybe a little bit shorter. And then the quick thank you. First of all, just say thank you. I wouldn't go with, the whole formal thing. I think the one line of just thanks for clearing this up for me is fine. But if it's thanks for clearing this up, here are a couple other things like you're saying, and then it turns into that sort of rapid response. Yeah, just respond similar to the way whoever you're emailing responded. But I think email etiquette is absolutely that as the conversation continues, it does tend to get a little bit less formal. Yes.
I know we need to keep rolling with our time here, but because we're already here, speaking of that kind of back and forth conversation, if there's anything that you can include in the email that's going to help the person you're working with to help you, there's never a problem with providing too much information, right? Especially, let's say if you're scheduling an appointment and the person says, please give me some times and dates that work for you. Sometimes students think, I'm going to be super helpful and tell them I can meet anytime. Well, what happens is we have a 5-time email chain, and I say, how about tomorrow at 11? And they say, oh, actually, I can't do tomorrow at 11. I have a dentist appointment. Can you do Friday? And I say, yes, right? So just lay it out there. What are you looking for? What times are you actually available? Any follow-up information that you can give, so you don't have to have 10 back and forth emails. Maybe you're just having a couple.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are we all good with email etiquette?
Yeah, and again, anything else with email? So for Blackboard etiquette, this is a 2-minute video. I think it's actually going to be quicker than if I talked about it. So this is just discussion boards online. I hope you guys know a lot of this, but
I just need to update my setting here.
I see it looks like we can see your audio. Here
oh, perfect. Now. Okay.
Most of us are familiar with society's guidelines known as etiquette. Online communication has its own rules and guidelines for etiquette. These are often referred to as netiquette. Keep these rules in mind for any kind of online communication, including email, discussion board posts, and other online contact with your classmates or instructor. First, avoid abbreviations that you might use when texting or on Facebook, like talk to you later, laugh out loud, or other abbreviations. Not everyone knows what these mean, and even if they do, avoiding them will help communicate more clearly what you really mean. Second, make use of the subject line. Imagine walking into a library where none of the books have titles on the covers. You would have to open every book until you found what you were looking for. If you don't give your post a subject line, viewers will have to open your post to see what you've said, so always give readers a clue about what's inside. Third, it's important to know that all caps is like yelling at someone. You probably wouldn't yell at your classmates during an in-class discussion, so please avoid doing it online. Next, be careful with joking or sarcasm. Since these frequently rely on nonverbal facial cues or tone, they often do not come across very well in online communication.
That post you made was totally sick.
It's easy for someone to misunderstand your meaning or even become offended because they couldn't tell that you were joking. Finally, be frugal with exclamation points. Overusing these gives a much greater sense of urgency to your message than it likely deserves. Plus, it can make you seem like you're yelling or that you lack maturity as a writer. By keeping these simple guidelines in mind and remembering why we hold discussions, you can help make your online course a truly meaningful experience for everyone involved. Now go discuss something.
Perfect. So that's really it in a nutshell. Is if one of your online classes is requiring a discussion board, think those basic things where, right, you're not writing a thesis. It doesn't have to be that everything is perfect, but avoid those sort of online abbreviations. It is still a college class. Don't yell at anybody in the discussion board. That sort of basic, treat people the way you would, just like if they were sitting next to you in class. And sort of keep it as, I think clean is the best word I have for it, right? That clear subject line, the nice couple sentences or paragraph about whatever the discussion was, without, and I think I didn't mention, don't swear, things like that. Anyone have any questions or maybe an experience that you've had with a Blackboard discussion board so far?
I've for my history class, we have you basically post assignments to the discussion board, basically a summary of the weekly essays. So last week, what we did on European exploration and colonization, which was format essay, basically answer like 5 or 6 questions about how did Native American culture change over time, how did they react to the Europeans trying to colonize them, and not only do you have the assignment, a written assignment which is submitted to Blackboard, but you also post basically a summary of the same assignment to the discussion board as well. And
people can kind of chat about it and get each other's insight.
Well, we don't, so far, our history class hasn't had any virtual online sessions.
Mm-hmm.
My professor has stated his reservations about that. He feels it's not quite the effective way to go about things. Just have a couple of windows, like a couple of days of the week where you can send emails and expect quick responses to those emails. And if one's coming up today, I'll send an email because I like to. One of the things I like to start with is basically put down all the questions, have an outline of the assignment, and then so I'll know how to.
That's some pretty perfect examples of etiquette and communication. And expectations.
What the expectations are for that class. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Want me to keep it rolling here, Sarah?
I think we're ready I think this is the main event as far as I'm concerned. So Zoom etiquette, and I know that this little infographic is a little bit tougher to read. So I want to say a lot of this kind of leans to if you have a virtual class session. But I want to mention a lot of this also for when you have one-on-one appointments. So we know you all are living really different lives in really different situations. So if it is something that really requires that you have your camera on and you're having that conversation with somebody, you know, find a place where you can have as much quiet as possible, as distraction-free as possible. The biggest one, please, please, please do not Zoom while you're driving. And that is both on this, and I'm saying it because it's one of the things I never thought I would need to say, but we really do. This is happening. Just if you need to be focused on a Zoom call, you need to be focused on a Zoom call. And that's the biggest thing I can leave there. Be dressed for public interaction. So at least from the waist up, you know, wearing something that you would wear to school is, I think, the best way. You know, you don't have to be dressed for an interview or dressed really formally, but a t-shirt, you know, at least, you know, maybe without anything offensive on it. A sweatshirt's good, nothing crazy, but be dressed for public. You know, on the bottom, if it's pajama pants, it's pajama pants, but, you know, be dressed for the screen from the top up. And again,
and be mindful should you need to adjust or change positions, that yes, you are when you stand up on screen. So be mindful, right, of whatever you're presenting to the screen.
Absolutely. I think this next one, I think especially if you're in a class, be focused on the class. So I know how tempting it is to be opening other tabs, doing other things on your computer while you're in that class, but that class time is for you to be getting as much out of that class as possible. So try as best as you can to stay focused on the task at hand. The next is with regard to having your mic and your video on, and that's going to really vary by the setting. There are some situations where it's going to be really appropriate to have your video off, or maybe you don't even have a camera or whatever it might be. So video off is often a fine situation to be in. Audio on and off, you know, especially if you're somewhere that's not quiet, maybe you have children around you or something like that, making sure that, you know, I'm on mute unless I'm trying to speak, that kind of thing. I think you'd be surprised sometimes how maybe you're used to that noise behind you and it's not distracting to you anymore, but it really might be distracting in a Zoom meeting, even if it's just a one-on-one. So even just, you know, muting while the other person talks and then unmuting can be a good way to do things. This I don't think is etiquette, but just in terms of lighting, try to make it so that we can see your face. So if I'm in front of a window and a lot of light streaming in behind me, a lot of times it's really hard to see someone's face with lighting like that. If it's just a dark space in general, it'll be really tough. And now I'm going to show you. I actually can't see myself right now, so this will be a little bit tough. But I have a light that I'm having reflect off a wall right now. If I turned it to face me, like that's not good for anybody. Yes, my face is lit up, but you really can't see me. So if I just turn it back, that's facing the wall and just reflecting back onto me. And that's a little bit, if you can do that, I have a lamp that's just a little bit adjustable. So that's, if you can, don't shine the light directly on yourself. The last is, I think, connecting on a computer if you can. It tends to work better. It's a little bit easier, but this is, I think, Elena, I hope you can jump in here too. If you're on a phone, I think, Carolyn, you might be on a phone, maybe not, but you're doing you're doing the exact right thing. You're basically in one spot. You have the camera on you. It's no big deal. I have a lot of meetings with students who are on the phone and walking around and I'm seeing the whole house and I'm or they're riding in the car with a friend or they're at the park. So it's fine if that's your camera, that's your camera. Use your phone, that's no big deal, but use it like you were at a computer where you're sitting in one spot.
And I think that goes along with etiquette, the previous etiquette that we were talking about as well, and communication. Treat the meeting like you would in person, especially if you're calling to ask for something, right? If you were going to a job interview and it was via Zoom and the person who was interviewing you was walking around and taking care of their kids and cooking dinner, you wouldn't feel very heard or seen or that your time was being valued, right? The person was multitasking, they're not really paying attention to you. So make sure when somebody else is giving you their full attention, financial aid office, your advisor, whoever it might be, you're treating them with the same respect. Like Sarah said, you're sitting down at your computer or propping up your phone, and you're really giving them that undivided attention. It's gonna help them help you more quickly. And it's really respectful to give the person who's helping you your undivided attention as well.
Yeah, perfect. And Caroline, I was going to say, I didn't mean to call you out. I was just like, I think you're doing it perfectly. I think you're doing the thing and doing it perfectly. So I just want to clear that up. I think we're close to the end. I think maybe one or two more slides here. So, and this, I think, just is the part that sort of sums up exactly what we've been saying. If there's a chat in the class or in the meeting, think before you type. So if you wouldn't say it in person, don't say it in the chat. I know the chat feature in Zoom has a way that you can be talking to just one person in the chat. That is asking for a disaster. You can so easily accidentally click that it was to everyone when you meant it to be just to one person. If you don't have something nice to say or something that moves the conversation along, do not say it in the chat the same way you wouldn't say it in your classroom. And if you would say it in your classroom, that might be a conversation about etiquette, not online. Should you eat in a Zoom class or meeting? This is a question I've seen kicking around online a lot. It depends would be my answer. If it's a really long meeting, yeah, I think that's okay. Definitely shut off your volume. There's a lot of people who can't stand that chewing sound. Probably turn off your camera too. No one really wants to see you chewing. Sipping water, sipping a drink, that's definitely no big deal. But I would always lean to, if you're needing to be talking, you're not shoving your mouth full of something. And if you're in a class and the teacher has asked you not to eat, unless you have some sort of medical reason that you would seek an exemption there, don't eat in class. And you would probably want to seek a disability accommodation if there were a medical reason that you needed to be eating in class if the professor has asked you not to.
In general, treat it like it would be in person. If you have to work and this is the only hour that you have, very politely talk with the instructor and just, if you're treating it like you're just at home chilling, so you're going to sit on the couch and eat a snack, that's, less acceptable than, if you have to.
Right. This is, I'm running out to work and I just need to eat something. But again, with the communication, you're always better off talking to your instructor or even saying to the person, you're having a meeting with me, and you just say, like, I'm sorry, I just haven't eaten all day. I'm going to eat this while we talk. No big deal. That's not a problem at all. Just communicate. I really want to pose this as a question to you guys. Do you think the rules are different for one-on-one meetings or tutoring than they are for a regular class? And are those different in person or are they only different online? So I just wanted to see what you guys think about that. I know that was a kind of complicated question. I think you're muted, Anthony.
Like I said, how do I say this? Is the Is the basis of the question, how do you consider the rules? Like, I
Yeah.
generally consider it to be the same thing. I know that, like, in class, like, there's a little bit more, like, I noticed, like, in my first and second semesters, there was I was saying there was a bit more liberty in what some people were able to say, like, in terms of actual words, than like there was in like my high school setting. And I remember, like, like, someone would, like, be talking and they would casually throw in a swear word in their conversation and no one would bat an eye. And but I would be kind of uncomfortable to use informal language in such a formal setting. And you know, everyone's different. You know, you do you. If you want to, you know, if you're a sailor mouth at heart, own it. That's I'm a little bit more reserved, especially.
Well, and I think that's a great point. I don't mean to interrupt you, but with the etiquette is sort of a general guide, and that everyone's going to have a little bit of a different comfort zone on what they consider polite and appropriate based on how they grew up or what they've experienced before. You're right, Anthony. When you were in high school, there was no swearing in the classroom, period.
Yeah.
And it may happen in a college classroom, and depending on that professor or
It was a
class,
culture shock for
it
me.
may be
Like,
acceptable.
it was a culture shock for me.
Yeah, but it's definitely kind of speaks to that. The rules are different in different places. Manny, I think you were going to say something.
I mean, I agree with Anthony. I mean, personally, I don't have any classes where I have to be in like a classroom setting. It's just like they give you the work and you do it. But I mean, it also depends on, like, I think Anthony said too, on, like, you know, who you're working with, and, you know, they don't mind, you know, and if you're comfortable with them. I mean, that obviously goes for a tutor or a professor. I mean, yeah, that's all I have. It's
No,
just-
that's a great point. Knowing everyone's going to be different, knowing who you're working with, let them kind of lead the expectations there. If you come in to a meeting and you're walking around, or you're eating, or you're throwing out curse words, just be prepared that that person might have some feedback for you, and they'll hopefully then set the guidelines for how they expect the meeting to be.
They may have something to say about,
like, a topic or a thing.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think I think for me, the difference between a one-on-one meeting or a classroom meeting is, in the one-on-one, there's that little bit of room to get familiar with that one person and know what your sort of etiquette together is going to be. So maybe it is a little bit less formal. But when you're in a classroom and you have 20 other people who are all going to have these different experiences in different bars for what's appropriate, you always want to be a little bit more polite, use a little bit more courtesy, because you don't want to be crossing someone else's line on someone else thinks now you're a really rude person when you just maybe didn't understand the situation. So it's 1:30. Any questions or anything else, guys?
As a reminder, this is being recorded as well and will be uploaded to our newly launched Blackboard page. So should you want to go back and watch through so you have access to the PowerPoint, it will be available online as well.
I'm so embarrassed. There, people are going to see me yawning and people trying to stay awake.
I wouldn't worry about it, Anthony.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if you don't have any more questions, you can, I believe, feel free to exit. I don't know if Sarah Williams had something, might have had like an evaluation form, but it might be emailed to you.
Do. Yeah, I can email everyone your evaluation form. So just take a few minutes to complete that. That feedback is really important. As you know, we're kind of trying out all of these, web seminars, and we want to make sure that we are providing you content that you enjoy and that you're taking away from. So I will send you an email this afternoon with that evaluation.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
your day and week.
You too.
Bye.